14th of 2024, and you're listening to episode 398 of the BCC podcast. I'm LQ, and joining you.
And now I can't hear.
No, I can't hear.
I can't. Oh, you can't hear Liam either?
Nope.
We
Yeah, can you hear
can't
me now?
Hello?
hear you.
Okay then.
Is it better now?
Yes, now we can hear
Yeah.
you.
So is it my internet or yours? Hello?
Well, seeing it.
This is the Brick Commentary Central. You're listening to the BCC podcast.
It is Friday, June 14th of 2024, and you're listening to episode 398 of the BCC podcast. I'm LQ. Joining me tonight is Leo.
398. We are 2 away from the big 400.
Yep, that's why we're doing this bonus podcast, to make sure that we actually get there by our 10-year channel anniversary, which is Thursday, June 27th. So be sure to be here. I don't think we planned an official time for when that stream is going to be. Probably sunset, whenever sunset in Michigan is. So it's not too horribly hot to have us all upstairs in an old house.
Yeah,
So
that's a very big window, though.
yes, probably about 10 p.m. Because before that, I think it will be too hot. I do have an air conditioner up here now, so that's good. Also,
That's good.
Before we
Is
go
it one
too
of those
far
boxes
here,
again?
yes, it is. Ford is also here.
Yeah.
My wife is totally gonna fall asleep on stream, and it's gonna be all your fault for not having air conditioning.
Well, okay, so there's another thing. I guess we're discussing this live. Well, originally I said like all the women could be in there too. Then we started doing logistics of how many chairs can actually fit in this room. So, we're running official logistics tomorrow, but we might have to do some swapping out of people.
Yeah. Tag in, tag out.
Yeah, that's probably what we're gonna have to do. So we're gonna prioritize the 5 guys, and then women can swap out for whatever chair is left, just like the old country.
Okay.
Speaking of the old country, Leo is going to take the reins tonight and tell us about what's the name of the place in the Elder Scrolls again?
Amriel?
Amriel.
Tamriel. I was
Fact that
so
I know
far off.
that.
I should know. I've played over 500 hours of Skyrim.
You should, you should have heard Heimskr blurt it out
I
often
have never
enough.
played Skyrim.
Well, you're not missing too much.
I've
Leo-
never played Oblivion.
You are missing a lot.
So Leo is
No,
a...
okay.
I'll
No,
just preface the
finish what you're
subject. Leo is jaded, so we decided we're going to give him some time just to plead his case and tell us why the Elder Scrolls has been bad since Elder Scrolls Arena.
For
It's
everybody
not
else
that
who
bad.
doesn't really, for everyone who doesn't really know the relationship or the exact nature of the relationship that Leo has with the Elder Scrolls, think me, but with Star Wars. Now you understand.
I don't know if I'd quite say the same thing, but
uh,
I'll ask the pivotal
because-
question at the
okay.
very end.
they have their similarities.
but here's where the similarities end. So Star Wars was sold by George Lucas and bought by Disney, and has had things actively come out, since then to ruin and debase things. There has been no mainline Elder Scrolls title since 2011, and the only things that have happened have been other Bethesda games to make us worried that the next game is going to suck.
When did Revenge of the Sith come out?
2005.
And then when did Rise of Skywalker come out?
2019.
Sorry,
So that's
sorry.
14 years.
Force Awakens.
Force
2015.
Awakens, that was 2015. So 10-year gap.
So
Yeah.
10-year gap.
We are longer between Skyrim and whenever Elder Scrolls 6 will come out than between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens.
Wow.
But between that, we have had our equivalent of the Clone Wars TV show, which is the Elder Scrolls Online. Which is its own mixed bag, but I enjoy that game a lot.
What's that Blades thing?
Isn't Elder Scrolls Online
Blades?
pay to win?
That isn't. No, it's not pay to win. You can grind.
But who would
Um,
want to do that when I can pay $5 to go up 10
Because
levels?
the game is not.
Oops. I guess that lad finally loaded. I forgot that I set the phone down.
This podcast is brought to you by Duolingo.
It's true.
Spanish
Do-
or
do it.
Vanish.
With Duolingo,
Dutch
you
or the
can learn
crutch.
conversational languages in just a few steps.
Do you want to pretend to learn a
Duolingo.
language while ever actually getting to the point you can speak it? Well, then Duolingo's the app for you. Sign up now and get a free family plan on us. Or something like that. Not on us. On Duolingo. There the S. This podcast has been
Duolingo,
sponsored
this
by
little-
Duolingo. You too can look like me. Ka-chow.
This little green bird's gonna kill my family if I don't learn
Yes.
Italian. Please send help.
What is happening? I knew this was going to be a strange episode. This isn't where I thought. It's all my fault, too. Okay, Leo.
Aiutate me. Aiutate. Okay. Where were we? Oh, Blades.
What is
So,
it?
How
so
about,
it-
Leo?
it is an app.
How about you start
It's
from
an
the
app game.
beginning and tell us about the downfall of the Elder Scrolls? Give
Okay,
us a
so-
brief overview of game by game and what is great, and then immediately in the second game what gets bad.
So if you would turn your attention to the podcast document that Sombrero Man has so kindly organized for us, I have added a list of all 13 Elder Scrolls game titles. So you begin. Let's see, when did Arena actually come out?
1983.
It came out in 1994. No, 94. So, February 1994, and this was. So the scope of this game was the entirety of Tamriel. And you you basically played this champion who would go around
Oh wow,
seeking
that's some
artifacts.
box art.
Yes, it is. It is huge.
I'm not gonna.
90s pulp.
I'm not gonna
box
put
art.
that up
You-
on the screen. I'll
No,
put up
you
this
don't.
map of Tamriel.
I gotta say though,
Yeah, but
I do kind of miss when cover art kind of looked like this. When fantasy had this general style.
You know what?
Okay.
I'm
yes,
gonna
when
say,
fantasy just put everything out
Yeah,
there.
when fantasy was just like heavy metal magazine.
gotta admit, I don't
miss
miss
that
that
aesthetic.
particular. Yeah, there's certain elements.
LQ is
of
not a
this
fan of the cheesecake.
Uh-huh.
All right,
Okay,
this
but
is we're not gonna show you the box
gist-
art. We're gonna. I said I put up a map from the game. I assume from the game. Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I have not yet gotten to Arena yet.
You're
I've not
playing in
gotten to
reverse.
Daggerfall yet. I am playing in reverse because I started with Skyrim and I'm going backwards. But I know I have a friend who says that you can finish Arena in 30 minutes. Like
Like in the way
full
you can
complete
finish Super Mario 64 in 30 minutes.
I don't think quite in that way, but like if you know exactly where to go and what to do, then you can finish it pretty quickly. So the things to know about this game is that all the dungeons are procedurally generated. So they have a set of assets, and the game, when you enter it, puts them all together in a random list. So that
So if you have a particular seed and you just set all the dungeons to be next to each other, then you can get it done.
no, the dungeons themselves aren't set next to each other. Like I think they're set in the world map, but like when you go to them, what you see is going to be different each time. It's like the enemy, where the enemies are going to be and whatnot. So this lets them craft like content and NPCs for the world, and then let the procedural generation take care of the fighting itself. Which this is also a game where
Game director for Fallout 3.
I remember when they were talking about the marketing for Blades, the app game. They said in Arena you clicked on your mouse and you swung your sword around with your mouse. And so we have brought that back for Blades, since that was a beloved characteristic, and they don't know what they're doing. Because I don't know who in his right mind in this day and age would still want to swing a mouse around, use his mouse to swing his sword around. But that's what you could do in an arena.
I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
You should play
in Metal Gear Solid Revengeance.
You mean Metal Gear Rising?
Yeah, Rising Revengeance.
No. Yeah. I think.
Reminds me of. Oh,
I
reminds me a
think.
little bit
Oh
of
no,
the
keep
Jedi
going.
Knight game. Yeah, it reminds me of the Jedi Knight games. You swing your mouse around, you swing the lightsaber. It's pretty fun.
Who needs camera
Star Wars
controls?
dead to me.
Did the Jedi Knight game also include die rolls when you swung?
Old Republic did.
Yeah. Knights of the Old Republic did, but that's because it was
Yeah.
turn-based.
It was also
It
based
kinda-
explicitly on an RPG mechanic.
I mean, depending on like the nature of the AI, kind of. I wouldn't say it's dice rolls. It's more just like random chance.
Yeah, but like,
But
you
I
had
guess that's not. Yeah,
you didn't have
I
to
don't
use
know
your
how to
sword
define it.
in the game. You could use like magic, thievery.
Mhm.
The general fantasy hero archetypes to actually go through things. And then, like most RPGs at the time, everything was text based. Anything professionally voice acted was going to be a rare treat. You could join different guilds, like all the stuff that you would recognize in like Skyrim or Oblivion. Got its start here. We even got to see Uriel Septim the Seventh, who is the guy who is the emperor who you're trying to save. So he's a big deal later on.
I'm gonna put up an image of the gameplay because I feel like people are having a hard time visualizing this. There you go.
Yeah, it is heavily pixelated.
Yeah, this is the game that has the
but-
largest world.
No, not this one. That's Daggerfall. So,
Yeah.
despite being able to cover all of Tamriel, the next entry, Daggerfall.
Well, I
the-
mean,
the
like the
direct
largest
sequel.
geographical of the game.
Geographical, yes. But like for physical in-game world maps, you still have not topped Daggerfall. Now, granted, a lot of it is empty space, but it is still impressive that the full thing is there.
But I thought Daggerfall was just one of the parts of Tamriel.
It is, but like as a game goes, and as any open world game goes, it has the largest in-game map.
But
It's just the Iliac Bay region, but it is
maybe wait, hang
massive.
on. Maybe I'm just getting confused because if it's the entire continent in Arena, yet only one part of the continent in Daggerfall.
you are
saying that
you are
Daggerfall is
confusing
bigger?
what I'm saying.
Yes,
So
I am.
the
Clearly.
in lore Arena covers a larger area in lore, but in terms of gameplay, when you are walking your character across the map, there is more space in the game of Daggerfall for you to walk over.
Leo, is this
than there
screenshot I've got
is
up
in Arena.
Okay.
Daggerfall?
I don't know. It looks right.
Okay.
It's about
Well,
right,
the
yeah.
character modeling has improved a bit. It looks like Minecraft.
So what I remember about people talking about Daggerfall is the pitch was that if you get like caught stealing in one of the shops, you shouldn't try to save scum. They always tell you that you shouldn't try to save. Like they said, you should let yourself, get arrested and go to court and see what happens. Because like they're billing it on this really expansive and complex world where like the choices that you made actually mattered towards the gameplay, and where Arena had only the one ending for it, Daggerfall has like 4 or 5 possible endings based on who you choose to side with in the conflict over the Iliac Bay. And this would cause some lore problems later down the line, but as a game, it's a very cool and very nice idea that I wish would be taken into account in later entries.
Now, to clarify,
it
because
is-
I believe this is the basis for your entire argument going forward, correct?
Yeah, part of it. It's basically there are good parts that Bethesda should have iterated upon instead of discarding. So we can kind of talk about their idea of player freedom and player choice later on. I guess after we go through the mainline titles.
Okay. Real quick question about this one. Is it fun?
Yes. It sounds like a game I would enjoy. I like games of like intrigue and where the choices that I make in the gameplay actually affect what happens.
That does sound good, actually, but I want to was like, is it actually fun to play?
Well,
Is the
that
minute-to-minute
is going-
gameplay fun?
that is going to depend upon your high tolerance of old gameplay. So I imagine it probably would still be. They got rid of the swinging your sword around, so you don't have the lag from that. So like it's just
fail.
one button you click, and
Wait, are you talking about Daggerfall?
yes, talking about Daggerfall now.
From what I've seen of it, it does look fun.
It
to
is
play. It looks like one of those classic dungeon crawler games.
yeah. It is an improvement, like gameplay wise, like in terms of the quality of life over Arena.
So
Yeah.
this is
Again,
where it peaked.
Well, that
Kind of.
some people say it peaked there. Like it is. I feel like Daggerfall is everything Skyrim wished it could be. Skyrim with its modern graphics wished it could have this depth of like actual content inside of it.
Well, from what I understand, wasn't Daggerfall going more for like that Ultima Underworld type of thing?
I don't know. Maybe
Or are you just not familiar with?
I'm not
Ultima
familiar with
Underworld?
Ultimate World.
I have
It
no
was
idea what that is.
basically just Ultima Underworld was basically just Dungeons and Dragons, but in a dungeon crawler first-person format.
I mean, that's kind of what Arena
Yeah.
was like. It was trying to give you that
Yeah, like, it was
tabletop
trying to do that,
RPG
but like with a
life.
new look and a new way to experience it.
Yeah,
And Daggerfall kind of amped it up by making it so that when you walk around, you're literally walking in real time,
yeah,
rather than an arena when you're kind of jumping from place to place.
yeah.
Got that right?
I think so. I don't remember how like if there's like fast travel in Arena. I think there is.
Like
I
I would
can't
have
remember off the top of
played,
my head.
I probably would have played Daggerfall by now if I wasn't so like put off by big expansive RPGs like this.
Well,
I got
it's
jaded by Pokemon. Okay.
so that both all the Elder Scrolls games I think do a good job of starting you off small. You can quibble about with how Oblivion and Skyrim implemented your startup, but the other ones give you a very clean blank slate from which to like get introduced to how the game works and how the world functions and what you need to do in order to win. Um, so yeah, I think the important thing to take away from this one is going to be like the 5 different endings that you can unlock for it. All 5 of which are canon, by the way. But we can get into how that works, I guess, later on. The only. Do you want to move on to the next game, or are there anything else to?
Yeah, we can
To
move on
probe
the
my
next one. I'm
limited
trying to
knowledge.
find some screenshots of it. There's some disturbing stuff.
For Morrowind or for Daggerfall?
Are we skipping? You put all of them in there. Are we skipping the spin-offs then?
So we can talk about those. It's nice to, I guess, put them out. So there are 2 games between Daggerfall and Morrowind. The first one is Battlespire, which is in the same vein as Daggerfall, but it's a prequel to Arena. It's a prequel to Daggerfall. The events are co-concurrent with Arena. And that's when you first get to see Mehrunes Dagon, who I think he got introduced to the player in Daggerfall. Like, a lot of what you're familiar with in terms of Elder Scrolls lore that you're going to see later on gets introduced in Daggerfall. So that's things like the Aedra and the Daedra, a lot of the political climate with Emperor Septim, what's his name?
This Mehrunes Dagon guy has a lot of titles.
Yes. You get to meet Mannimarco for the first time. You see the Underking, and that's when you get the first bit about how Talos is a false god. So a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be played upon later gets thrown into Daggerfall. And then Battlespire, you're fighting the armies of Mehrunes Dagon, who have conspired with the evil wizard to capture the Emperor in the first game. And so Mehrunes Dagon is kind of the primary antagonist will be brought up again later on. And then after Battlespire was a prequel to all the games called Redguard, which is more of a Prince of Persia style game with a named protagonist named Cyrus. And he goes on a bunch of wacky adventures to save his sister. So all the games prior to that took place in the 3rd era, and Redguard takes place in the 2nd era.
Redguard
and
had
it is
massive graphical jump.
Yes, it is 3D. It has nice polygons, as nice as you can make them. And yeah, you're kind of just running around. Let's see, what's the name of the island?
I thought it was Redguard.
Yokuda. Where Redguard is the name of the race. So Cyrus is a Redguard. That's who the black people in Tamriel are called.
Oh.
So he goes to Stros Makai, which is just off the coast of Hammerfall, which is where the Redguard live. And he gets to meet such wacky characters. Let me see if I can find. Oh, there's a funny little guy he gets to meet.
Is the Black Marsh part of
the
Morrowind?
slowed. Black Marsh is where the lizard people live.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out this map.
The
The
Argonians.
borders are very ill-defined.
Yes. Okay. Here we are. So, I have an image of this frogman I want you to put in.
Okay.
The one I just recently posted.
That's a frog?
Well,
It's weird to think that like they branched out into different like genres
yeah.
for the games. It's not something they really do much anymore.
Well, they don't make games anymore.
They don't make games anymore. They
No, I mean like a lot of companies they don't really do that kind of thing.
No.
Like imagine like Mass Effect, you know, if they made like a side title, which I know they did before for like a mobile game or something like that, to tie in with the release of the third game. But imagine if they just kept making like single player, you know, very story based Mass Effect games where it was all just linear and your decisions didn't really matter too much.
I feel like the lore would get even more messy.
It would get messy. It would definitely get messy.
Yeah.
All right, Leo, go ahead. Where are we at now?
So basically, the fellow I put in is going to come in later. He's called a Slode, and he's this necromancer that you get to meet, who's connected with Man and Marco, who you met in Daggerfall, and could side with if you really wanted to. So after that, you jump back to the third era. So after puddling around in the second era, you get to the third, and we get to Morrowind, which is the home of the Dark Elves.
So this one I have played some of.
Yes, because I gave it to you for Christmas at one point.
I bumbled through this game when I was 12. It was very
So-
off-putting. I never looked back.
I have not finished this game yet, but I'm in the process of playing it, and I'm having a good time with it.
I tried.
It's very fun.
Whenever I
there's a lot
look
of
up
fun to be had with
screenshots from Morrowind, it's all these like remastered things. People, which
that is made by cowards.
You gotta play it vanilla, man.
Yes. If you do not love Morrowind at a slow polygon count, then you do not deserve it at its remastered.
All right, here's the
Um, Yeah. So there's the Nerevarine, maybe. So in Morrowind does one thing that's different from all the other games that came before it. Out is all the procedurally generated stuff, and in is handcrafted dungeons and world map. Morrowind has the smallest world map, but it is probably the one that's most jam-packed with stuff to do.
Are all the dungeons handcrafted?
Yes.
Are there never-ending quests?
There are not never-ending quests. There is an end stage to the game. The game is not meant to be played forever with the same character. So here's the thing. Morrowind is kind of the first and last of a thing. It is the first Elder Scrolls game to be, I think, bring the gameplay into the more modern era. Like, it's still using dice rolls to generate hits and see if your spells work. But in terms of how the game is structured with the handcrafting of the world map and the placement of NPCs and how the quests work and how your factions work, that's the direction that Elder Scrolls should have taken, and it is kind of the last of those games where you were intended to start with a new character in order to access content that you locked yourself out of by the choices you made. So,
God.
So, yeah, this is the last Elder Scrolls game where your choices really matter.
Yeah.
This
is where Thread of Prophecy is Severed comes from, right? Or is that
Yes.
Daggerfall? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is still a game where you can kill everyone. There are no essential NPCs like there would be in later games.
What happens if you do? Can you just like block yourself from beating it then?
I think so. You can also block yourself out of like guild quests or other quests that are there.
See, on one hand, I can see how that's enticing. On the other hand, I can also see how that's going to majorly break a very long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more in the vein that, so if I am going to play just a straight up fighter, I should join the Fighters Guild. I have no business being in the Mages Guild or joining House Telvanni. I should join House Redoran instead, who are the big honorable fighters.
But doesn't
I
that limit player choice?
That's a good thing. Because if you can beat everything, then what is the point of playing the game again? Like, other than to just boot up and be a stealth archer for the second time because you get your jollies that way. It is also the only game. I guess it's the last game where you can really have this modular equipment set. So you have options for your shoulder pauldrons, you have options for your greaves, with your cuirass, with your what do you call gauntlets. So like you can have a really done up custom armor set, and you can put robes over it if you really want to.
Very nice.
Those slot options would decrease with Oblivion and Skyrim, which we'll get to it. But I like Skyrim's crafting system, and I wish that it had been implemented in a game that had that kind of modularity with how your armor worked.
That is something that always bugs you about Skyrim, is that your armor looks like crap most of the time.
Yeah, despite being able to improve it. That is the nice thing about Elder Scrolls Online, with the crafting there. Like if you get a good blacksmithing skill in that game, you have a lot of options to mix and match your armor and really make a unique look. So you can style on everyone else. Because it matters more in an online game than on a single player game. Morrowind is also probably the last game to have the most convoluted plot. I think Daggerfall's plot is convoluted in its political nature. Morrowind's plot is convoluted in the oddly theological warfare that takes place inside, mostly because of the relationship between the Tribunal, which is the three leaders of Morrowind, and Dagoth who is the three-headed guy who I gave you in the Dagoth wave picture.
Okay, let me get that one up.
You can do either of those.
I only see one head.
Oh, I'm sorry, three-eyed guy. He has
Okay.
3 eyes.
Okay, so who... I know, I'm gonna really show my intelligence here. Who is Dagoth?
Daddy Dagoth Okay.
Who is he? What is he all about? Am I
Okay,
supposed to like him?
That depends. The unfortunate... So this is the worst part of Morrowind. You cannot join Dagoth
Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, in Daggerfall, you could join the evil necromancer, or the undead king, or the orcs, or the Bretons, or and help them win.
Mm-hmm.
In Morrowind, you're kind of forced into helping the tribunal win, even though you can kill the tribunal later on. So Dagoth's thing is this. So but before time was recorded, the Dunder, or as they're called before,
Leo, is one of these images supposed to be Thomas the Tank Engine?
Yes, that is for Skyrim.
Okay.
You don't recognize that?
You don't recognize it?
I recognize it. I just want to know if this is what you meant.
Even I recognize that.
It
and I
is
never
one of
played
the
a
most
minute in
famous
Skyrim.
mods for the game.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to
It
get ahead
replaces
here.
all the dragons in the game with Thomas the Tank Engine.
Okay, so Dagoth. Who is
Okay.
he? Why should I care?
Okay, in Morrowind, um, there were these elves called the Chimer, who they're gold skinned like the Altmer, who are the High Elves, are like they had this theological split basically, and the Chimer decided to leave and go have their own religion with blackjack and hookers. They meet the Dwemer, or the dwarves, who are elves who are atheists and redditors,
Do they wear fedoras?
basically.
Ew.
So there's another series of things that happens, but the Chimer and the Dwemer go to war with each other. The Nords are involved somehow. You remember Skyrim? The Nords are
Yeah.
from Skyrim, which
Oh,
is
good, you're
Morrowind's
awake.
neighbor. Yeah. So over the course of the battle, with the Dwemer, their chief architect, Kagranak, sees that his side is losing, and he doesn't want the Dwemer to just go extinct. And so, in desperation, he takes the Heart of Lorcan. We can explain what that is later. And he strikes it, and in some ritual, and all the Dwemer disappear. And so the Chimer are left asking, what's happening? And so Nerevar, the leader of the Chimer, he says, well, we have this dangerous artifact here. I can't let anyone, mess with it, or something worse might happen to us, like what happened to the Dwemer. And so he sets his chief man, Dagoth. He's not Dagoth then. He has another name, but he'll become Dagoth to guard the Heart of Lorcan. Depending on who you ask, I like this version of the story better. The three advisors, which is...
Wait, is this the Hobbit version of the tale, or is this the version of Bilbo's tale that we get in Lord of the Rings?
Yes and no. So you're... This,
you get what I mean.
So this is where the lower part of how all 5 of Daggerfall's endings can be canon is also going to come in.
Okay.
So there are multiple versions to how this story worked out, but this is the version that I think is probably clearest. But the version of its opposite is also canon, where Dagoth kills Nerevar. But so those 3 people, Vivek, Sothasil, and Nerevar's wife, Amalexia, they decide to kill Nerevar so that they can take the Heart of Lorcan's power for themselves. And Vivek impales him, and then they go to Dagoth to ask for the heart. He says no, and conflict ensues, and Dagoth disappears, and the 3 get the power of the heart. And then they get cursed by one of the Daedra Azura, and that's how they get their dark skin.
Wait, that's how
so maybe a little more
came to be.
That's how the Dark Elves became Dark Elves. So Dagoth, the antagonist of Morrowind, is the vengeful return of the spurned general of Nerevar, who you as the player are supposedly the reincarnation of Nerevar, brought back to defeat the tribunal. But you also have to defeat Dagoth.
Okay. It's always got something to do with destiny and all that, right?
Well, so the game kind of plays off of, are you really like fulfilling a prophecy, or do you just happen to do all these things? It's a bit of I guess a Dune story in that way too.
Yeah.
Because like Paul kind of just fits into everything because of how circumstances ended up going around him. Yes, he could see the future. Yes, he could do all these things, but
he is not himself the Messiah.
Yeah. Like it's kind of the choices that led you here to do these things that made you into that. You were not destined to do this. It could have been anyone, but you were the only one who did these things.
Right.
So I did not expect to do I guess it was inevitable to do the lore dump.
No,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I kinda
we'll
wanted
go to
it.
the
It's
heart
just-
thing later. Considering we had like a 3-hour discussion about this once, I don't think we're gonna get to it on
Yeah,
this
this is-
podcast.
Yeah.
It's the lore that interests me the most about these
Yeah.
games. Yeah.
So I said earlier that the different versions of the story of how Nerevar got killed and Dagoth-Ur did his thing. So the Tribunal has a version where Dagoth-Ur kills Nerevar. Both of these are technically canon because what occurred with the Heart of Lorkhan was this thing called a dragon break, and that is this idea that time itself has been brutalized so much that it is going to force some weird event to occur so that all these things can happen at once. So when you go to Daggerfall, all 5 of the endings are canon because there's this dragon break that occurred when the big giant robot was activated.
Oh.
So the Heart of Lorkhan is placed inside this giant machine called the Numidium, and the Numidium changes hands several times, and the next place it ends up is in the Iliac Bay during the Daggerfall game. And so you activate it there too, and that's what causes this dragon break. So you can have all 5 endings canon at once. So you can have your cake and eat it too.
It still doesn't actually make sense, but
No, it makes no sense at all. But that's kind of
No,
one
no,
of the
it's-
fun things about
It's kind of like
the game.
I don't know if any of you have heard of Eternal Darkness.
Maybe.
So it was a game for GameCube. It was kind of like sort of like a Resident Evil sort of clone.
Yeah.
I think Capcom made it. I think who made this? Who made?
I
this
know what
game?
you're talking about, but I don't really know too much.
Silicon Knights. Yeah. So the idea is that like there's these like elder gods that are all like fighting with each other, and then there's like this elder god who wants them all to die, so that by the end of the game, depending on which path you've chosen, you get like a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But but if you go through all 3 different paths, whereas like it's kind of like a rock paper scissors thing. So if you pick like either rock paper or scissors, you get like a different path. But if you played all 3, then you get to an ending where all 3 of those gods, the rock paper scissors gods, have killed each other, which is what the elder god wanted.
Mm.
So all 3 of those paths are canon to what the story is. So that kind of sounds like what you're getting at with the 5 endings.
I think that jives with the same idea.
Like all of it.
So
like,
basically,
could
is everyone
happen at
dead
once.
at the end of them if all of them are canon?
No, it's just there's a really weird political situation. So like,
But then,
in
like, going forward in the lore, who's dead and who's alive? How does that?
Yeah,
work?
I feel like
So-
something. I feel like something as like mind bending and universe, destroying like this. I feel like it would defy the petty nature of politics. Maybe that's just me. Like,
okay.
This is like universal stuff.
So
I don't think a politician would really concern him with like the consequences of time itself.
yeah. So
being destroyed.
in the lore, the conclusion of Daggerfall is called the Warp in the West, followed by the Miracle of Peace.
Certainly is.
So there's indescribable death and destruction that took place, but at the end there's the peaceful Iliac Bay. So reading from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, the wiki. By Third Era 433, the rules of the 4 kingdoms were deemed to be ordained by the 9. And the Bretons believed that the gods believed. Okay, So Sentinel, which was the kingdom on Hammerfell, took the entire coast of Hammerfell. Orsinium, which is the home of the orcs, gained political recognition by the Empire. Mannimarco achieves his apotheosis, and then Numidium vanishes, and the Underking is not seen again.
So basically, just like the events of the other games take place so far removed from all the canon endings that it doesn't matter.
No, Morrowind is very soon after.
I don't.
So 433. And when does?
We're 45 minutes into this episode.
Yeah, we have. There's a lot of
I
stuff.
want to know things. Let him cook.
So this is like happening. So maybe this is happening simultaneously. So like by Third Era 432, the Empire reports that the the Tribunal are dead. And then, so when is the Oblivion Crisis? Yeah, the Oblivion Crisis is like 434, I think.
Oh.
So like these games happen one right after the other.
Wait. I thought they were like thousands of years between each other, all the games.
No.
What?
Arena is a direct. Daggerfall is a direct continuation of the Arena storyline, just as Morrowind is a kind of a direct continuation of where Daggerfall would leave off, and then Oblivion is the most direct continuation.
Oh. Okay.
So Oblivion is the last game in the Fourth Era. So this is a good enough time as any to get to it.
Yeah.
So Morrowind was the first game where you started as a prisoner, and in Oblivion, you literally start in jail.
I played the beginning of both of these games.
Cutting right to the
Yeah.
chase.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where the gameplay gets playable for me.
So, for me, yes and no. Oblivion streamlines some things in Morrowind. Like I think it makes the spell crafting better. It's not a dice roll thing anymore. Like when you hit something, you actually hit it, and then like it's depending on your stats from that afterwards. The thing that gets me about the Oblivion gameplay is the what you call it when how the leveling works. So like when you level up,
that's
your
weird.
enemies are going to get difficult with you. So
If
like
you sleep.
at level 1, it's hard for you to kill a skeleton. At level 15, it's still hard for you to get a skeleton because the skeletons are getting stronger with you.
So there's a
And
comparable
I do
method.
not like
Okay.
that.
There is
It sucks.
There's such an easy way to fix that too. Still trying to get an image up for Oblivion, but easy. Just change the type of enemy
like-
that spawn probability.
Yeah.
So just make it so something
Well,
bigger
so
than
this is like
skeleton spawn.
when I'm when I'm level 50, the game is spawning for me like 5 different liches at the same time to fight me, which is lore breaking and also feels bad because they all have jank spells.
Was there
But
idea
there's
behind
also
it so
really
that the
no
game
other-
would never get too easy? Or
Probably.
I think so because Morrowind, you can break that game. Like Morrowind is designed to be played to be broken. Like if you have an exploit, you are obligated to exploit it or you will lose. Oblivion is not necessarily that way. In Oblivion, you have to exploit it to have a modicum of fun.
Oh.
Now, to be clear, when I said this is one where the gameplay
and
gets
that-
playable, I mean like the actual controlling of the game.
Would you?
I
Yeah,
mean like
and
the
that's
actual way
a
you
fair
move
consideration.
and feel and interact with stuff, not like
Yeah.
the game experience overall. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't think I got
I
far
do
enough to
think
really have the
my
leveling thing.
yeah, and I would agree with you. Yeah, like I finished all the main quests in Oblivion, and by the time I was done with the Shivering Isles, I was done. Like the enemy leveling is such that like when I'm actually fighting the bosses who are supposed to be the big challenge, like Umral the Unfeathered, who's this returned elven king, or Jiglag, the Daedric Prince of Order, I one-shot them essentially because they're not leveled properly.
Oh
Do you
boy.
fight that
And
big forearm guy with the Wolverine claws?
You do not fight him. Actually, if you go near
Aw.
him, you die, and that is how it should be.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find the picture of that one. There we go.
Yeah, pull up Mehrunes Dagon. So that is the climax of the Oblivion main story.
So what is Oblivion?
It's hell.
What is
The game or the plane?
It's hell.
Well, it's more than that.
Is it like hell on earth? Is that what it is?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So this is where you get into like the setting cosmology. So there's Nirn, there's the Mundus, where everything takes place, and then there is
Do you have a picture for this, Leo?
the
Because
planets.
you explained this to me once, and the picture makes it at least so
Let
you
me
can
see if
follow
I
what
can-
you're saying. Because I also find this very fascinating, but also, as someone who likes to study lore and usually doesn't have trouble with it, this is extremely hard to follow.
Yeah. See if I can find a picture of like trying to find okay, I'm probably not going to find the map that I'm looking for. But basically, so you can think of the cosmos as this wheel, with the Earth at the center, Nirn, Tamriel, and then there's like 8 spokes for the different realms of Oblivion around it, and then like there's kind of the Ethereum outside. No, hold on, I'm misrepresenting that. That is not what I meant to find. I'm just going through different articles trying to find a good picture. So Oblivion is kind of like this. I guess you could, for lack of a better word, the is the Tie-Home, the waters over which the Spirit of God hovered in Genesis. That's my best analog.
Is it this?
To it. Is it what?
Is it this?
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the center you have Nirn the planet, and then the planets of the different Aedra are around it.
So they're all aliens?
No.
these aren't like
they're
traditional
these-
planets.
Yeah.
What do you
Darn,
mean
this
traditional
is-
planets?
You know what?
So,
I'm
like,
gonna go
you can see them
beyond
in the
the
sky.
normal podcast frame for this one.
Yeah. So these are planets you can see in the sky.
Okay.
Master and Secunda are the 2 moons, which are the 2 halves of Lorcan when he got killed by the other Aedra, depending on who you ask.
This always
So
reminds me of the
Oblivion-
diagram my pastor does on Gnosticism.
Well,
So how
you
do
gotta
these
admit,
all
Gnosticism makes great fiction.
how do these all interconnect then?
So, Oblivion is the place where those who did not participate in the creation of the world inhabit. So
Whoa,
they,
this is
they have their
Mormonism.
own. They have their own planes of Oblivion, which they themselves control and create, and basically are them.
Okay.
So, if you take Meridia, if you've played Skyrim, you know Meridia as that strange woman who says, "A new hand touches the beacon."
Yeah.
She has her own plane of light, and she hates the undead, and you get to visit her plane in ESO, because it gets pulled into Cold Harbor, which is the plane of Molag Bal, who you fight in
that
that
what-
game.
Is that what Magnus is?
No, Magnus is the sun, who is a hole in Aetherius that lets magic in
Hmm.
to the world.
Okay.
So the sun and all the stars are like pockets in the fabric of space that got ripped through by these people who are escaping the creation of the world because they did not want to lose their power. So each of the realms of Oblivion is highly keyed to which Daedra is the head of it. So the plane for Mehrunes Dagon, the Deadlands, looks like hell because Mehrunes Dagon is the Daedric Prince of Rebellion, and he likes things to change, and that means lots of conflict, and that means he must be tested to survive the conflict. So he's kind of a Mao Zedong character. You must eat the spicy food to participate in rebellion, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And he is the four-armed guy in the screenshot there, who you fight at the end of the game.
But you don't actually fight him or you die.
You don't fight him, no. That is... I don't want to get into this part necessarily, because I liked kind of just seeing it. But so the main character is not... is a hero of the story, but is not the hero of the story. That title belongs to Martin Septim, who was voiced by Sean Bean in the game.
Oh.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah. And Uriel Septim VII got voiced by Patrick Stewart, and it is very important to note that his character dies in the prologue.
Oh. Well, he had to go record lines for Lego Universe, so I understand.
So the conflict with Dagon that got built up from Arena through Battlespire and I think a bit of Daggerfall gets concluded in Oblivion. So after Oblivion, there's not just a new political shift over Tamriel with the end of the Septim dynasty, but there's also kind of a cosmological shift. Because the game concludes with the doors to Oblivion being closed shut forever, and there's over like 400 years where there's no contact really with the Daedric princes.
I just like that idea. It's like no one, absolutely no one is going to hell anymore. The doors are closed, you can't get in, and you most certainly can't get out.
Nope, no getting out now.
You have no choice. You have to go to heaven when you die.
This happens in Ninjago too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oblivion is also noteworthy for having the Shivering Isles DLC, where you go to another plane of Oblivion, but this one is the plane of Sheogorath, the Prince of Madness. And the plot of that is basically Jiglag does not want to take his meds anymore, and so he conspires for a way to have his doctor stop giving him his prescription. That's my best explanation for it.
Oh, okay. So
Oblivion is fun. It obviously, a lot of the enjoyment comes not necessarily because of the game itself, but because of the bugs and the unintentionally hilarious NPC interactions.
The face technology was not where it needed to be yet.
No, and for whatever reason, Todd thought it would be a good idea to dust that off for Starfield, and I don't know why. Right down to giving you an adoring fan.
Oh, Todd.
Yes. Oblivion is also the first game where you can become the leader of everything.
I know this story.
Yeah, so by the end of the game, you are not only the hero of Kvatch and the Imperial Champion, but you're also the champion of the arena. You are the leader of the Mages Guild. You're the leader of the Fighters Guild. You're the leader of the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, the Knights of the Nine, and you become Prince of Madness. So that's eight titles. That's 8 titles you can accrue through the game.
But you're still not the main character of the story.
Well, not really, no. Because nothing you do matters, because even though you have those titles, you don't get recognized for them. The only way it helps you is that if you become the head of the Mages Guild before you do the Thieves Guild. You can steal from yourself without anyone causing you trouble. And that's about it. That's the only way it affects you.
Nothing matters.
Nothing
ever
matters.
Happens.
No, there is one ending. There is one outcome to all of this. You can get all the content you want from Oblivion with one character, and it sucks. It's a fun game, but I don't know how much
But
I'd
it's
actually
like
be returning
everybody's
to it.
favorite one.
Yeah.
I feel like in that sense, there's at least a little more variety in what you can do in multiple playthroughs in Skyrim.
Well, even in Skyrim, you become so. We'll talk about Skyrim. So I think Skyrim had some nice quality of life advancements. Like I really like the crafting system for everything. I think it has the best crafting system of the games. Aside from what online does, but that's not a mainstream game. And that is more or less where my praise for it ends. The dragons are dumb. The story is dumb, and really the only value of it is in the memes and the mods. Hence why I elected to
Well-
choose this screenshot.
Well, what did the dragons have to do with anything?
So this is another problem that kind of got worse with Starfield, because at least in Skyrim the dragons are visually interesting. I don't know if you've seen any reviews of Starfield.
I've seen enough of it. I
You've seen
know.
enough. Okay, so you know that they have these these nameless enemies who are supposed to be like these uber powerful and mysterious people that will just pop up randomly after you've completed some major part of the quest, and they'll try and kill you. They have no strategy. The AI is broken, and from what I've gathered, it's another unfun experience that just makes things inconvenient and not necessarily engaging.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that is
real quick,
Bethesda-
Leo. I want to
that-
gauge how much have you how many hours have you put into Skyrim?
Well, I'll go find out.
I exaggerated earlier too. I said 200.
429.7.
Okay, so I have about 200.
Okay.
A little over 200. It's two different playthroughs too.
Yeah. I mean, most of that is putting mods into Skyrim, honestly. Because I wanted the game to be more fun after I played through the first time.
Now, here's a question I have just while we're on here. Do you think it's the problem is Skyrim is not fun, or do you think it's not fun after you put 300 hours into it?
I think Skyrim was fun for my first time. So, like, Skyrim was my introduction to, I guess, RPGs, video games as a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as I started going through others, like the other Elder Scrolls games, the Baldur's Gate games, Knights of the Old Republic, you know, I started seeing when I went back to Skyrim that this is not as fun as I thought, and then I started thinking about it and dissecting my experience, and that's really why I only play it with mods, if I play it.
Well, because at that point, like, they really took out all of the tabletop elements that the
So-
series used to have.
I am okay. Kind of broad strokes. I'm okay with the tabletop elements being gone. What I have a problem with is is Skyrim continuing what Oblivion did, which is saying your choices do not matter. There is only one experience
Mm-hmm.
for this game.
Which I can see as an issue, but I can also see... Dude, we just had the whole debate about how all endings are canon issue when you do allow choices to all matter. If you're trying to make a bigger universe.
Yeah, which I can kind of get dicey, but I think it is more important. That is more important for each individual game to be fun. Like you that's one of the sacrifices you should be willing to make for clarity. But Bethesda does not make these choices with that in mind. I know this because they are not smart. That is not their rationale for this.
Our proof, Your Honor, the defendant is not smart.
Yes. like the best dungeon in Skyrim is the Black Reach region, and that is completely because it caught me off surprise the first time, and I still really think it is a well designed area.
I don't think I've ever been there.
It actually requires you to backtrack through the dungeon and remember where you are. You can walk through every Skyrim dungeon because it's a straight linear path. It's basically like going on a roller coaster.
See, this might be one of the reasons I think just the way we play games differs, is I start getting frustrated and I feel like a game is wasting my time and backtracking too much. Because I have so many games I'm trying to get through and complete. I kind of like a streamlined experience.
Okay. When you clear a Skyrim dungeon, there is no reason for you to go back there unless some Radiant AI quest sends you there.
Yeah.
When you clear a dungeon in Morrowind, like, you kind of just go in there and you do what you're going to do, and maybe you hop on this other thing, or maybe there's something that you're not leveled enough yet to go visit, which is a bit of a classic RPG element. But you can go back there because someone said, hey, I want you to find this for me, or here's this key that might help you out that I found. You know, or here's this lock to this puzzle box.
Mm-hmm.
So there's reasons to go back and actually engage with the content again. Skyrim is a big one and done thing. Like, once you found the big surprising thing, that's it. There's nothing else.
Which I can understand why that's a downside. I just feel like for me it might be a positive because I just like to clear stuff and check things off a list.
Maybe, and that's okay if that appeals to you. But the other thing where this philosophy shows up, so did you clear the Elven Embassy section?
Yes, if it's in the main quest, I did that, and I finished the Civil War quest once.
This is part of the main quest.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So when you're in the embassy, you find like 2 or 3 dossiers. One is on Esmer, who you find later on, and like another one is on Ulfric, the current disputing High King of Skyrim, which explains how he has been set up as an Altmer asset in the Civil War. If you remember, there is a section of the main quest where you have all of the leaders of the Civil War and that dossier in your possession. Is there any point in the game where you are allowed to present that dossier and change the point of the political face of Skyrim forever?
No.
And that is why it's a bad game.
Because it doesn't give you the choice.
And a role-playing game, like, regardless of how the mechanics work, regardless of like how the math crunches out, is primarily based on your choices mattering and affecting later parts of the game. So a video game, a good video game, will have those choices in mind in the design document. Skyrim is meant to be played and enjoyed one way.
But that's because the Dungeon Master, planned it that way, and you
Yes.
can't go against him.
And this is why I think that Baldur's Gate 3 blowing Starfield out of the water at the Game Awards is a very important thing.
Okay, to be fair, Starfield's way worse than any of the Elder Scroll games.
It is a terrible game. But Bethesda believed that they could put it out and everyone would buy it because they're Bethesda, not because they have any good report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the only real games that they had like mostly goodwill on were like the Doom reboot games, if I recall.
Well, that was a while ago now, and I hear they're making another, so we'll see how that goes for them.
Yeah,
because Wolfenstein just like crashed and burned like
those are,
you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, those are also very different games than like their mainline studio games.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to gauge how Elder Scrolls 6 is going to turn out, I'm going to look at how they're treating Fallout and how they're treating Starfield.
Well, Fallout is just like nothing anymore.
Apparently there's been like a resurgence of a small pocket of 76 fans.
Well, yeah, apparently the game is good now, but it wasn't at launch.
Yeah.
How many are there? 76 players?
No, it's probably more than that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I only heard about it when it was really bad, so...
I refuse to believe it has more players than that after all these years.
No, I know a few people who play it and have fun with it, but
But wait,
the
did the
76
guys-
is also as an experience going to be more like Elder Scrolls Online than it is a mainline Fallout game.
But did they ever get their canvas bags?
No,
Wh-
I don't think that. That's
Oh,
another
man.
one for the sweet little lies counter for Todd.
Well, Todd decided he just couldn't afford to give people that paid for canvas
Yeah.
bags.
It should also be important to note that while it's fun to dunk on Todd, he is not like the sole problem.
He's not,
these
but he
franchises.
elects to make himself the face of the problem.
He does,
Yeah.
and that it's very funny to meme on him. But there's also people who get in over their head, like Emil Pagliarulo, who is the writer for a lot of the quests. And as the writer, he does not really factor into his designs any other choices beyond you must make this one. Like it makes the protagonist very stupid when there's only like these options that to go for when there'd be a much smarter approach. Because like the end of the day, the best approach is going to be violence. Like you're not really going to talk your way out of the situation unless you are scripted to do it.
Now you sound like Paul Atreides again.
Yes, I do. And it's not just Emil. Like there's others. There's like the whole format for how they put games together. Because apparently, like they were talking about this for Starfield, they had no game design docket. I think they just winged it.
I mean, it basically just looked like Fallout 4, but in space.
With Oblivion face gen. Yes.
Yeah. Like, there was really nothing new about it. Like, yeah, you got the guy who played Quark in DS9 for one of the roles or whatever. Whoop-de-doo. What
Yeah.
else you got? Like,
Yeah,
I want a full experience. I don't want Fallout 4 again. I didn't like that one.
Yeah.
Have you played any of the Fallouts, Leo?
I have not. The aesthetic is not really one that appeals to me. If I were to play one, it would be like New Vegas, but that was made by Obsidian, not Bethesda.
I've got both New Vegas and 3, and I think I'll play them at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember I was very hopeful for Starfield because I like the space.
I
Aesthetic.
kind of was too, and it looked a lot more polished at first.
Yeah, but Todd with his sweet little eyes. He got
And yeah,
this.
that was like, I'm never going to believe a Bethesda game can be anything but trash after that.
Yeah, I'm not going to play. There's no way I'm buying anything of theirs day one release. It's going to go through reviewers first before it gets to me.
All right, so now we've went through all the Elder Scrolls games and identified why they've not made a good game since Daggerfall.
Morrowind is a good game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the last best game, I think.
12-year-old me is still like still getting bad flashbacks with those dragons.
You mean the Cliff Racers?
Yeah, whatever they're called.
I can understand,
They
yeah,
keep
why.
warming.
I disagree with the premise that makes Skyrim a bad game now, but I can agree that it makes it a bad Elder Scrolls game.
It's definitely a bad Elder Scrolls game.
I still think Skyrim, and Leo's going to disagree with this completely, is probably one of the best games ever made. Just for how universally appealing it is. Like, anyone can play Skyrim for 100 hours and have fun. Which is rare for a game, and I think that's a laudable achievement. But I can see the big issue is they've lost a very good type of game that's not being made anymore. Well, I gotta play Baldur's Gate 3 and see actually what they've done. I've not gotten to that.
There are so many different ways to, like, even if you're like going in on homing for one ending, there's so many different ways to reach that ending in that game.
I gotta play that because I gotta see, and I feel like that could shape where these games are going forward. The interesting thing again is Baldur's Gate was made by a smaller team than these games.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of Bethesda's problem is they have so many people on their team. Like, there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Well, most of them weren't hired because they're good game designers.
Well, look, you got to make the money. You got to spend the money that Microsoft gives you somehow.
This was before Microsoft even bought them.
Well, it's kind of like a lot of games have been going in that direction where they're not really like
Good.
well, yeah, but like I keep saying, they keep taking away all the tabletop elements, right?
Hey,
I don't know that
but,
that's necessarily the problem.
But I think it would help to, I don't know, I just like not like legitimize the experience, but make it like more robust. I think
That it definitely would not make it more robust. That would
I
be
don't
more
know.
limiting in the end. It's not the tabletop issue. The issue is focusing on the same really big, expensive features rather than doing something unique and crafting an individual experience for the game. Because everyone's always focused on how big can you make the world, how good can you make the graphics, not how good does it feel to play this, how much of an individualized experience does it give a user, not just because there's too much that they can ever do, but because it allows for a unique play style.
yeah.
And that's
Like,
what all these games do now, is they're like, oh, this is so much to take so because you've got a lot of grinding. Not because there's a lot of content or a lot of choices. And usually it's very much not focused on the story elements. They'll put the lore in books, not the game. And even then, Starfield has this issue especially. People talk about it. The story is basically boring. Like, there's nothing that goes on. I don't think it's the RPG mechanics that give an issue. That the issue is they don't spend time on the hard parts, which don't necessarily require a lot of people or resources, but it does require a lot of work. You know, writing is not easy. And especially writing a branching story, that's really, really hard if you want to make sense with each other.
I mean, writing is difficult for, modern writers anyway, so...
Yeah, and if Bethesda doesn't want to do that, they should not build their games as RPGs. That is kind of my ceiling here.
Let me ask you this. What is the functional difference between Skyrim and Tears of the Kingdom?
I have not played Tears of the Kingdom, so
Tears of the Kingdom is very far from an RPG. There's little to no dialogue.
But Skyrim, like, if you've taken out all the RPG elements, is that really an RPG anymore?
No.
So what is it?
It's not even game. It's not even an action adventure game because the action sucks. The only viable
Leo,
play style is stealth archer.
But Leo, so then by your definition, though, Final Fantasy, by your definition, then Leo, Final Fantasy is also not an RPG. Because I haven't played Final Fantasy, so I can't. There's a lot of RPGs that are linear stories. A lot.
So, but doesn't Final Fantasy also kind of hinge on like the customization of your character? Like most
of the time you play a pre-named character.
Well, not like a pre-named, but like how Red Dead Redemption 2 is.
At least there might be some of the newer ones that are like that, but the older ones I played not at all.
Okay.
So going back to very classic RPGs like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, the ones that built the genre, the branching story and choice is not a huge part, in the ones I've played at least. And these are more JRPGs, to be fair, which might differ a little bit than the Western RPG. I'm trying to think what game really defines the Western RPG. It's kind of in a genre that's already a mess.
Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Mass Effect to a lesser degree.
Yeah, Mass Effect is very much like what Leo's... I don't think Leo would like Mass Effect as an RPG based on what his issues with Skyrim.
No, especially if he wants to get into it now, he's going to be really, really angry that in the Legendary Edition, which is the best way that you can play it right now, they took out all the dice rolls.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they took... So,
they made the first game fun to play.
Because
it is fun to play. It's really fun to play.
I have the Legendary Edition. I'll crack it open.
Leo, go into it as an adventure game, not as an RPG.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that.
I know, like with the dialogue options and everything, they took out all the dice rolls. So every time you get like something, you just get the affirmative answer.
Well, that's because there are some choices that matter for smaller side stories, and
with
the dice rolls, there's a chance you just completely have some content locked by pure chance.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I'm fine with it.
Which is like okay, right? but some of the other dice rolls they got rid of that they kind of needed to make the game like a little bit harder.
Now, if you like
'Cause as
lore
it
and
is, it's just
story,
so easy.
Mass Effect does have a very, very one of the best stories, and
I do
it's
like
just
lore and story.
Like I very
Um,
much enjoyed the Mass Effect lore.
But the problem is the gameplay, like the actual, shooting mechanics and everything. They just made it so easy. Like you could put it on the hardest difficulty and have a
See,
have a
I
fun
like
time.
that because I suck at shooters. And then
But it's still fun. It's still fun.
it's very fun. I'd be interested in what your feelings would be on, like, you won't have the same issue you did with Red Dead, Leo, though, where it gets a longer learning curve to get into the game. I feel like Mass Effect kicks off much faster. It's not like an open world in the same way.
My issue with Red Dead Redemption was the save point. I
Yeah,
didn't understand
I
what was
think
happening.
if you go back to it someday, and then you're to the point where you get a little more progress in the game, and especially get quick travel, that's not going to be a big of issue for you. But I know exactly where you're at the beginning. It takes a very long time to orient yourself properly in that game, and then it gets frustrating. But after a certain point, it just clicks.
So really, I should not hunt the bear until later.
Sorry.
No, don't go after the legendary beasts and stuff yet.
Yeah, it's not worth it. I thought you said, Liam, when you were playing Mass Effect, I thought you said there was like a problem with your save.
There is a glitch in Legendary Edition.
I forget what was the glitch.
So there's this one side mission in the third game, which I don't want to be too spoilery about, but these certain factions that you're trying to get on your side. And at one point you go and you talk to this security guard, and you're doing this whole quest, and you go and talk to someone in the bay, and then he's supposed to call you again in the elevator when you're going back up, and that kind of completes that part of the quest, right?
Right.
If you save before you go on the elevator, and then you quit and load it again, it just drops that flag in the quest, and you can't complete it.
Mm-hmm.
And they never patched it.
Yeah.
So
I think that was something that like carried over from the original third game. So
I don't know. I think it was only in Legendary from what I heard. There's a different glitch that they fixed. But again, I don't want to go into spoiler territory here.
Yeah.
Just
yeah, wait,
Leo, if you ever talk to someone in a landing bay,
like a
don't save and quit until after you go to the elevator.
Yes.
So, Leo, how would you save the Elder Scrolls?
How would I save the Elder Scrolls? I would demote Emil Pagarulo from story lead.
Okay, how would you, in some sense of practicality, what would you give the design directions? What I'm saying.
Okay, I would take notes from modern RPG games that have actually won awards and deservedly in recent years.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes, I would take notes not for gameplay or anything, but for like the quality of life and the player experience. I would lean more towards something where the choices matter, and I would also write the lore such that like it's not going to try and be I guess not make the lore unapproachable, but not also like write it with its approachability in mind. And then
do you think you'd have to make it more of a standalone title this time?
I mean, each of them are kind of standalone, but no, this Elder Scrolls 6 cannot be a standalone title. There is too much unanswered in Skyrim that needs to be fixed. Because I am actually interested in how the aftermath of the war with the Thalmor is going to go.
Isn't it like the lore that basically no matter what happens, the Thalmor are going to come in and take over? Or is it the Imperial?
Are you thinking about like the Empire?
Yeah, wasn't there's like a rock slide, and like what people have said,
so
basically that's going to be cleared.
Yeah, the path from Bruma through out of Cyrodiil into Skyrim is covered with a rock slide, and once that gets cleared, the Legion can have access again and replenish the troops. So that's another thing, like where what you do doesn't matter. Which sure, you kind of have to advance stuff forward and run over some choices, which sacrifices you have to make. But I would be more concerned about setting up something that is sensible. I think what needs to happen is that Todd needs to not push for this specific release date, because a lot of Oblivion's problems were they're pushing for a 2006 release date to open with the launch of the Xbox. Skyrim was pushing for that 11/11/11 date, and so they had this huge map that Todd wanted filled, but it got filled with all this empty kind of saltine cracker content instead of a nice bruschetta dungeon that was in there.
I feel like Oblivion actually would be a game that's prime for an actual remake. Where they just fix it. I think Skyrim is prime for an actual remake too, where they just need to make it not glitch.
Yeah.
But
they have the anniversary edition. What are you talking about?
It makes things worse, not better. It only introduces more glitches. Like, every edition does not fix a glitch. It introduces more. But no, with Skyrim, it's glitches. With, like you pointed out with Oblivion, there's some fundamentally broken parts of the game, which I feel like would not be that hard to fix.
Yeah.
If they just took some time to overhaul the enemy system, basically. And maybe then they're going to do a remake, they could update the controls a little bit, polish up the faces. Then you could actually have a really great game.
Like,
yeah, I mean, the level scaling is really my only problem with it gameplay-wise.
I feel like one cool feature that you could take from, I guess, Elder Scrolls Online is just do like, online co-op.
That would be really hard. You got to fundamentally rebuild everything about the game.
It would be very difficult, but I know it could be done.
That would be a Fallout 76 situation.
Now, I would love to have more multiplayer RPGs that are not MMOs.
Yeah.
Because, like, actually, I've never played online.
To BG3 for me.
But MMOs just don't appeal to me as much because it breaks me out of the experience, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't allow me to get fully entrenched in the game like a co-op game or a single-player game would be, because all of it feels too much like the way that you're doing transaction stuff is very real world instead of in-game. Does that make sense?
I feel like ESO has done, at least how I've played ESO, it's done a very good job of keeping me immersed in, like, this is an Elder Scrolls game experience.
I think the other thing is when there's a story beat.
There's all these people running around.
Yeah. And again, I have never played it, but
when you get through certain story areas, like there is a point where it's just you. Like the climax is just you. You're the only one in that cutscene at that moment. And the main quest to ESO is a really fun climax. I like it a lot. Like there are some lore quibbles you can make, but it's a really
I don't think it's probably something I'll never get around to playing, but I'm curious.
That's fine.
What is the cost barrier?
I would mostly say say what?
What is like the cost to actually play through the main campaign of Elder Scrolls Online at this point?
It's like it's a one-time $50, and that'll get you like the full game plus like all the big main story expansions that they've released on without paying anything else.
Interesting.
But I guess back to six. The only thing that I think would really it moves Oblivion and Skyrim roller coaster dungeons towards the experiential of delving it and backtracking and like having it be like part of a real lived in environment. Like go more with what Blackreach had, go less with what Bleak Falls Barrow did. But that's really only something you can do if you limit the scope of your focus. And I really think Bethesda needs to narrow what they want out of this game instead of we need to do all the things
Mm.
and end up pleasing nobody. Because I think that's what's going to happen with the next game, because that's what Starfield did. There is nothing fun in Starfield. There are things that could have been fun, and you see real potential in them.
I don't
But
think there's ever
in
been
and
a
of
game
itself
I'm
is
less
defeated by another
interested in.
mechanic. So that's my pitch.
All right.
Yeah.
So probably gonna need to end here as we've got an hour and a half into this episode and our connection is freaking out on us again.
My goodness.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this bonus episode of the BC podcast. What was that, Leo? I think I lost it all at this point
I didn't say
anyway.
anything.
Okay. Yeah, it's just buffering weirdly at this point then. So,
All right, well, take us home.
yes. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, join the BCC Crew Discord server to get in on the conversation. Let us know your thoughts on The Elder Scrolls. Is Leo wrong? Is he right? Well, be sure to let us know. Arguing is always good for engagement. So, we got that 10-year anniversary 400th episode coming up on Thursday, June 27th, 2024. Be sure to join us for that episode. It's going to be great. We're all going to be in the same place for our first ever live in-person one-spot video podcast. And I'm sorry, I played the John Howard song and now it's just... Hey, for Ford, Leo, and myself, OQ, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Do whatever you want. This is the golden age of gaming. Make the player proud when he's playing your game. Make yourself proud that you made it.
I love
Make
this
your player
song.
proud that you bought it. And it works. It actually works perfectly. Our artists have painstakingly modeled over 9,000 objects. We actually have recorded around 1,000 of the most popular names for him to say. We have over
It works.